So, FDA advisors were considering a psychedelic drug for the first time ever yesterday, and it ended up being a complete fucking disaster. Because an independent advisory panel for the agency discussed whether to recommend MDMA-assisted talk therapy as a treatment for PTSD, with them then voting 9-2 that it's not effective and 10-1 that the benefits do not outweigh its risks, which is an absolutely stunning blow for the now decades-long movement to legalize psychedelics. Though I will say, the decision is both surprising and not surprising. Right? It's surprising because the drug sponsor, Lykos Therapeutics, submitted 2 randomized controlled trials that showed extremely positive results, with the first one finding that 67% of patients no longer met the diagnostic criteria for PTSD following 3 dosing sessions compared to about 32% in the control group. And the second one, an observational follow-up study finding that the treatment's durability lasted at least 6 months. But the panel's rejection is unsurprising for a long list of reasons. Like right off the bat, the FDA doesn't regulate psychotherapy, nor has it ever assessed drug-assisted psychotherapy like this. So they're already treading very uncharted territory, but that also doesn't get into the problems with the studies. Right? Because as we've talked about on the show before, Lykos has been accused of misconduct and even being a therapy cult, with the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, a group that evaluates clinical data, publishing a report last month stating that it is possible that the study encouraged the reporting of positive events and downplayed adverse events. And in fact, yesterday, one of its participants told the FDA that her therapist encouraged her to view worsening symptoms as evidence of healing and spiritual awakening, and adding that she and other participants later struggled with suicidality following the trial. And then there's also the scandalous video that went public of 2 therapists in bed with a participant while she was on the drug, with some on the panel expressing concern that the drug could incentivize that kind of unethical behavior if used widely. And then, misconduct aside, there were fatal flaws in the data. Most notably, that the double blind was ruined because it was obvious to most patients in the trial whether they had gotten the placebo or not, which, isn't surprising because if you've ever done MDMA, you know that you have taken MDMA. And so it's not surprising that the follow-up study had a dropout rate of 25%, with also some participants seeking therapy and using illicit drugs, including MDMA, which then brings us to the next sticking point, the lack of data about feelings like bliss and euphoria. And that's important because the FDA needs to know whether the drug has a high abuse potential, with one doctor telling NPR, "We're actually managing more and more severe cases of MDMA overdose, and so I'm less concerned about the safety in the acute setting, but more chronically if they go on to abuse MDMA." We also know from illicit use that MDMA may affect heart and liver health, but the trial didn't dispel that concern. But with all that said, the FDA doesn't technically have to follow the panel's recommendation, though I will say it would be very surprising if it didn't in this case, which I will say, I understand, but I also think is unfortunate. This seems like a situation where there just needs to be more and more research, very obviously done by different groups, especially as there's only 2 FDA-approved treatments out there for PTSD. The need for a new treatment option, that's long been recognized. And this would be the first new therapy option in nearly 25 years. And PTSD, that affects 13 million Americans. Though notably, this is only one drug and one application of it. There are other psychedelics out there like mushrooms and ketamine that are also being tested as treatments for other disorders like depression and anxiety.